In South Australia, we've always been aware that we live in a dry state, and so water's always been valuable, and people look for conserving water and ways that we can conserve it and use it in a clever way. Climate change is going to impact different systems differently. So what we're likely to see is a general drying across southeastern Australia. A small decrease in rainfall is going to translate to a fairly large decrease in runoff and significantly lower flow volumes coming down rivers like the River Murray. The implications for that is it's going to impact everyone. It's going to impact upon irrigation, and it's going to impact upon the environmental systems. And we need to be able to factor that in when we're making policy decisions on how we allocate water between the different users. Places like the Coorong rely upon fresh water. While we only had drought in South Australia, or bad drought, for 2 years, the Coorong hadn't received fresh water for about 7 years prior to that. And so its health was slowly degrading. And so when we got the drought, there was absolutely no fresh water going into the Coorong. And it was under that condition that we saw rapid decline. And so it was actually devastated a lot of the South Lagoon of the Coorong. Salinity there should have been about twice seawater. It was 5 times seawater. So there was no worms that you normally would reside within the sediments. There was no macrophytes. So there's an aquatic plant called Rupia, which used to have vast meadows, covered about 80% of the aerial cover of the South Lagoon of the Coorong. That was totally gone. There's very few migratory birds coming in because they just can't use that food resource. There was no fish in that system, so the fairy terns that relied on it also showed rapid decline. Now, with the fresh water coming back in, with the increase in flows we've seen since 2010, there has been some improvement and salinity's recovering, but we've lost a lot of what was there. So the Rupia hasn't recolonised the South Lagoon, and it may take decades for that to fully recover. The lessons we can learn from a system like that is we should be putting water into it when we've got good years, when the water's available, so that we can build up some resilience. And if we do that, then we can cope with droughts. The Torrens River sits just to the north of the CBD in Adelaide. It's an area which has suffered from development of the city. So even as early as 1880, we were seeing reports of them having to remove 15,000 tonnes of silt from just below the weir. With the Torrens in particular, since 1996 was when we recorded our first cyanobacterial bloom there, and they've been pretty much annual since then. With cyanobacteria in the Torrens, it is difficult to control them to below the threshold levels where we'd have to close the lake. But the work we've been doing recently, looking at dilution and dilution flows, that shows considerable promise in controlling them below that threshold level. We still will rely on rain events, so we still rely on rain to provide a flushing flow and remove the small populations that are there. But the continual dilution flow, which probably would have happened historically anyway, is a good use of environmental water.